So I just got back from work. I'm wearing this because I didn't leave home yesterday after I took a shower, so I'm just wearing this shirt again. But so just before I left work, just a few like maybe 2 hours ago, I was still at work. Yeah, I was still at work, but yeah, I was there was we were like cleaning up, and then somebody there was me and somebody else on the fry station, and the person on the fry station was like, hey, and was telling the manager, uh hey, let me wash the dishes, let me do these stations because I'll do them faster. He wasn't talking about me because I was helping him clean up the fry station, and then he was talking about someone who was washing the dishes. And then um now this is a manager. She will walk past people and be like, are you all right, are you all right? She'll ask other people but won't necessarily ask me. So yeah, I was off of work for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 4 days. And the manager at some like I'm sweeping, and then the manager's like, you want to take the trash instead of focusing on sweeping. And then I was like, well, okay, I mean, I want to get out before 3 4 a.m. And then this manager always sounds like she's yelling, which is like the crazy part. And then she was like, well, you want to get the trash or something like that. And um she was like, you want to get the trash and stuff like that. But it seemed like well, she definitely was yelling. And I was like, what's the yelling for? Because she was like 10 feet in front of me. And then she was like, well, I'm just saying. And then um there was other people that were sitting down, and then she asked me to take the trash back, and I told her I'm gonna go ask one of them who's sitting down. There's people sitting down. And the manager was like, who's sitting down? And then so yeah, at some point, told her I don't see any trash, so I went back to sweeping, and then I continued sweeping underneath everything. And then she said out loud, she was like, there were two people in fry station, and I'm the one refilling the oil. And then I was like, I can see you being passive aggressive, which I should not have said because she's been working as a manager. She is a manager. She's been working at that restaurant longer than I've been alive. So, and then I went back to working. And then, but here's the funny part: when I went inside the cooler, she never did this. She purposely walked inside the cooler with me and like cornered me in there. And then she was like, I've been losing my voice this whole time because I've been yelling, but I want you to make sure you're doing the oil thing. How long have you been here? And then I was like, 2 months. And then I said, I've done, and then she said she wants me to start refilling the oil since I've been here for that long. So then I told her that I barely get trained on that. Like, I've, I haven't done it more than 5 times. Like, I know how to filter the stuff, but I must have did it like less than 5 times because you haven't taught me, or like I know how to do it, but I don't usually do it. Is my point. Yeah, that's what I told her. I usually don't do it. So then I said, listen, you're trying to make it seem like I don't want to work. And then she was like, I never said that. And then she was like, this is not working. So then she turned around and walked out of the cooler. And then I said, as she was leaving, I said, at least you acknowledge that I work. And then she turned around and said, well, yeah, because if you were not working, I would take you off the schedule. And then I tilted my head. I was like, well, what about all the people who show up late, huh? And then that's what I said when I was coming out of the cooler to her, because I sweep and mop usually. And I sweep inside the cooler. Most people don't even sweep inside. And I actually get all the way under the grill and stuff. So I was like, what about all the people who show up late, huh? And then she was like, I'm not going to say anything in response. I'm done with this. So I don't know. Maybe she thought she was going to come in there and like yell in my face away from everybody else. And then also, when one of the people was sitting down, the person who was working on the fire station with me went to go sit down, and some other people. And then she started calling out to them. And I was like, I was being sarcastic. I was like, oh, you don't have to, I was like, oh, they don't have to work because they're your favorites. And then she was like, none of you guys are my favorites. You all ignore me equally. So, and then I'm getting stuff mixed up. That happened before. And yeah, and then when she said, when she said, I have that there's like that I have to change the aura, I was telling her like I'm sweeping, and then she was like, that wasn't a smart answer that you gave. And then I was like, I'm always going to have a smart answer, and you know what I mean by smart, right? So yeah, that's what I said. And then um, and then somebody, one of the other coworkers who had on white shoes, he was like, "Can you go get my charger over there?" And I was like, "You can come get it." And then he looked at me and was like, "Can you go?" I was like, "No." And then um, what's it called? And then he asked the manager to go get it, and he was like, "Thank you." And then I said something like, and then he was like, "Stop talking to me before you piss me off." And then I was like, "Have a good night." And then he went like this and had a blank face. And then I kept saying, "Have a good night," as he walked out. And then, because he left with another guy and a girl. So one of the other guy who left with him came back in, and I was like, "Is he still mad at me?" And then he was like, "Yeah." And then I told the other guy who, when he came back in, I was saying, I was just trying to see if he would do something. And then that other guy was walking back out. He was like, "Yeah, I heard you rage baiting him." So and then the guy who originally was like having an issue with me not getting his charger, because I had to walk over the area I was mopping, and the manager was already over there. So and then he came in and was like, and he was like, uh, the guy who like was having an issue, then circled back and came back in this time, and he was like, "Clock out, I'll beat your ass." And then I was like, and then he turned around because the door was propped open by a broom. He opened it, and then he turned around and walked away. And I peeked out. I was like, you weigh 90 pounds. And then I kept saying that as he was walking away. And he was like, I don't know why people say this. He was like, "On my dead granny, I'll beat your ass." Because he's taller than me, but he's like skin and bones, literally skin on top of a skeleton. So yeah. And then I went to go use the restroom, and I saw him, the other guy, and the girl standing there. And then he, when I came out of the bathroom, I walked past the window, then had my back towards him. Then I turned around, and he ran up to the window, and he kind of like did one of these. And then I was like, and then I pointed to my phone, and then he was like, he went like this, and then I pointed at him, like, "I'm gonna call the police on you." And then he started laughing and just walked and just went back over. Because, well, first I went up to him while he was doing that, and I was like, "Go home, go home." And then I was like, I said, "Go home, or I'll call the police," like through the window, because he wanted to fight me when I clocked out. Like, I'm not gonna meet up and fight you anywhere because you weigh like 90 pounds, and like, I'm gonna call the police. Like, don't put me in a position where I have to hurt you, kid. Like, come on. Like, it's a because this person who wanted to fight is like 17. Like, that's like, the tattoos don't make someone look tough. Like, none of that. Like, being so eager and quick to get into a fight. So like, I'll defend myself and like call the police right after. So if I have to, so just don't corner me and do any of that. So tomorrow I'm just gonna, if he still has an issue, it's just like, I'm just gonna tell him I'll call the police. Like no. So and then that was through the exit in the back of the restaurant. There's a front, there's a back, where you leave through a parking garage, where 90% of the time that's where we leave. And that's where he left and was hanging out, around the corner right there. But there's another entrance, a third entrance, where you go behind the kitchen and leave on like the adjacent, like right here. There's the parking garage right here where everybody leaves, right here. And then you come like this, and then here's the second exit, the main entrance to the restaurant. And then right here is where I left. I came out and went this way, and I waved at them, but only like the girl saw me. So yeah, kind of getting some details mixed up, but yeah, my manager is like the type that's short, and like every time she says something, she'll like yell, and like, I don't know. I couldn't get over thinking that maybe she, like, I don't know, just likes me less or something. But But yeah, there's like a fight like that at every shift. And actually, it's been exactly 2 months. I clocked in yesterday, July 10th, and it's my first day there was May 10th, exactly on Sunday. So it's like a fight on every shift. And the one who was like, I'll do everything, and was telling the manager, hey, I'll go ahead and do everything myself. Earlier that day, somebody was trying to lie and get like, and was supposed to say a name, but they said a number. And this person that was working with me, he's very prone to anger. He was like, man, that guy's lying, trying to get free food. It's pissing me off. And then he slammed this thing on the counter where we put our orders, and the manager was like, hey, cool off. And then and the manager seems to get angry easily at me. And then the manager was talking to him later and was asking him, are the dishes done? And he was like, man, it's not even she sent me back there. But then I stopped halfway because the guy I was working with on the fry station turned around and was like, man, it's not even done. And can you let me do it? Because I'll do it faster. And then started yelling at the manager. And then she was like, I'm just asking. And then I was thinking to myself, a taste of your own medicine. Because now somebody's getting upset with you because you're just asking something. So I just see it as a paycheck, and like, it's just like, I don't know why. It's always leads to like, there's always some type of like verbal tension, like nearly every shift. So my from my experience, I wanted to just work the weekends, and then I was randomly scheduled between Monday and Thursday. So then I ended up leaving my second job a few weeks ago. So yeah, and there was something like weird at that past job. Um, at that past job where somebody thought I was recording them, and then I had a whole conversation where like, the manager reached out to me about that. And then, well, I reached out to my manager and then was like, you can call the higher up, the regional manager, and like come in. And then they questioned me, and then they found out I wasn't. And then the regional manager tried to pull up a camera and say, you're not allowed to wear earplugs on your job. And I'm like, I'm not. That's the tag on the hat. This now I'm just talking about my previous job. But yeah, on this, let's go back to this current job. Um well, on the past job, I was like, by the way, the person who you think I was recording, you need to also tell them to not sag their pants because it's out of uniform. And the manager agreed, was like, that person sags a lot. So yeah. And then later on, that same manager at my previous job was like, oh, that was your angelic glow, that white thing on the hat. So yeah, I ended up leaving that job whenever I did. It was on pretty good terms. I told them, hey, my second job scheduled me in the middle of the week. Because I was telling her, because I was scheduled like 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on my last time working there. And then I was like, I would like to have less time. And the regional manager was like, yeah, I don't like to work more than 5 days either. So, and then they were like, take the next week off. And then I said, July is going to be like a record month. So I'm thinking about going full time there. And then my manager at my previous job was like, well, we can go ahead and make this your last week. So yeah. Um, so what else? And this current job, the person I work on the fire station with before, there was a previous time where he was getting angry, and one of the other people was like, "Okay, such and such, okay," and then there was a woman who was saying that, and then he eventually exploded and just started yelling in front of everybody. He was like, "No, no, these people are not listening to what I'm saying," and then he left and just walked off. And I was telling that same manager from today, was like, are you going to send him home or something? Because like, he's been there for like a year, I think. Then he came back, and I was the only one who talked to him, I think. And I was like, you get angry easily. It's just not worth it. Like, and then I sent a message to the group chat, and then somebody was like, I was like, if you're angry, just take out the trash because it's not that deep. And then another employee was like, we not trying to hear all that. And then I saw him at work, and then I was like, are you such and such? And then he was like, why are you asking? And then I was like, are you the one who said we're not trying to hear all that? Did you say that in the work chat? And then he started walking away, and I was like, why are you running? And then he was like, I'm not trying to have a back and forth with you. And then I was like, okay, that's fine. Be respectful. That's it. And then he was like, be respectful. You're not my dad or whatever. So, and then what else? That was another example from the past at this current job. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Like it's been 2 months and like I already want to leave. It's like something always. And then some other people said, "Who are you?" One guy said, "Who are you?" And another woman said, "Who is this?" with three question marks. So then one of the managers, like who are the moderators, like took me off the chat. So it's I'm just at least I'm glad I won't even be able to interact on that chat anymore. But I also miss updates and like people who are on the schedule. But a lot of it is just banter. Like said somebody who works day shift. I've only worked night shift here. Somebody was like, where TF is night shift, and then somebody was like, a woman was like, oh, he's standing on business. So it's just kind of stuff like that. So I'm just glad I get to miss out on that. But I'm gonna start like actively looking for another job, because this is actually one of the highest paying jobs I've ever had. But just like it's the most like arguments I've either witnessed or like been a part of. And then before I left today, the manager who was like always like giddy with me, they were unexpectedly kinder to me after everything cooled off and I was about to leave. She told me thanks for mopping, which she never told me before. Like I've heard her say that to other people who do certain stuff, but and then she was like, you chain your bike? You know, we have cameras. And she was like, you chain your bike inside? And I was like, I don't know why, I just do that. And then she was like, we have cameras. So then I ended up leaving. Before I left, she was like, oh, can you guys mop certain other parts? I'm sure he already mopped everything else. She was talking about me, and I was like, yeah, I did. So then, yeah, I left throughout that other exit, waved at them. I think only the girl saw me, and then I came here. So, um, it's fine, but like I've seen stuff reset and leave without having issues, but then they'll come the next shift, and then it's just like the mental turmoil is just what is that? So I'm gonna start time to go back to looking for other jobs because I had two jobs for almost a month nearly. So yeah, time to go search at least get my foot in the door searching again. Oh, and also before I left, the manager was like, "Oh, I apologize if I offended you." And I was trying to get a point across, but it didn't come off like how I wanted to. And then I was like, "Oh, you're good." And I was saying that while putting on my backpack. So, yeah. Oh, I forgot. Like the 17-year-old who was like acting the way he was, like he wanted to fight. He actually has like a kid, which is like you have like a loving family, like, but at the same time, like just being so insecure where you have not really been in like in the adult world where it's still like high school where you still want to prove that you're tough, you still want to prove that you're like a man, so to speak. So, and I feel like yeah, it's just like that drives a lot of it. Like just go home, like you have like get your paycheck like me because that's my mentality. I try to just like focus on the paycheck. I was probably the quietest one for the whole shift up until the end. I don't know why people just get a certain way towards the end of the shift. It's fine. It's just like people are like more attached to it, and I just try and like leave stuff at work, and then just move on. But yeah, I think that sums up all my thoughts. I hope.